And here we go. Okay. Hello and welcome to season 2, episode number 6 of Marketing Nuggets with Gabriella Ferenczi. That is my name. I'm a German and Hungarian language teacher, language coach, and I live in London in the UK. And I run a boutique language training company here. It's called ProLingua Global. And I specialize in working with finance executives here in London. Now, in January 2021, I started a passion project that I like to call Thrive Online. And it's a place where I share the nitty-gritty of practical modern online marketing with fellow language professionals. And this show is also part of that. Now, in this marketing nugget, I'm talking to Kriszti Nagy. She's an e-commerce strategist and coach. And Kriszti is the marketing brain behind the company T-shirt Tailored Refreshment. T-shirt spelled T-E-A, so the tea that we are actually drinking. And what they do is they sell eco-friendly, loose tea, but the best of the best. I mean, they keep winning really prestigious awards, and T-shirt has been running for over 5 years now, and even Selfridges stocks their products. So they have a shop in Camden in London, a physical shop, and they also have an e-commerce store online, which was created by Kriszti herself. And she now coaches other product-based artisan business owners on how to get online and how to set up their e-stores and sell more of their products online, you know, all these products that they are so passionate about. Now, what we language professionals are trying to achieve is also, you know, selling more of our services online, you know, the services that we are so passionate about. We also want to find more clients. So I think that whether it's a service-based business or a product business that we run, the basic principles of online marketing are actually the same. So I think that there is so much we can learn from Kriszti and her experience that I decided to ask her to join me for this interview. And, you know, and also the other thing is that when we look outside our industry for business and marketing inspiration, I feel that, again, we can learn so much. So Kriszti, welcome. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to be interviewed on the Marketing Nuggets podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, first question, the story. I mean, I understand your story. I understand you are actually coming from a design background, and yet here you are running an e-store, running a physical store in London, selling beautiful, really, really amazing teas. Like, how did this happen?
Well, it's actually quite... If I tell you the whole story, it totally makes sense, surprisingly. So, so I studied architecture actually in Austria. Now that we're talking about languages, right? So I studied in German and English, even though my German is, you know, it's not the best. But so I started my, studies abroad. So I left Hungary after graduating from high school. And so then already I was interested in, probably looking at moving abroad or like seeing more of the world. And in the meantime, while I was studying, I met my boyfriend, who at that time was running a tea room in Hungary. And then I did an internship in China, working as an architect, where I tasted quite a lot of amazing teas. So that was already, starting. This story was already starting that time. And then we moved to London, and I was working as an architect in an office. And then, we launched our own tea brand because my partner always wanted to have his own business, and I jumped on this train. So it was not only, building the website and working on the marketing, but I designed our packaging. I was very, very much into graphic design. Like, actually, the most amazing compliment, like professional compliment I ever got, was during my studies when someone thought that I studied graphic design before architecture. I was like, yes, this is what I want to hear, yeah, so actually it wasn't really planned that I would run my own business or that I would become an entrepreneur, but I burnt out a little in the office work, and then I just wanted to take a break, and I ended up working in the business full time. And the reason why I besides having to sell your products / services, you have to understand a bit of marketing. But the more I was learning about it, the more I realized that marketing and design, especially graphic design in this sense, and branding are actually working together, and they cannot really be separated from each other. So I just kind of got into all three of them. And also, while this was going on, I have been helping friends from the time of my studies with what you would call a creative VA work. Although I was doing that for free and I never thought about it as a job, but I've been doing that for quite a long time. So once COVID hit and our physical locations shut down, I realized I have to look around what I can do to, on one hand, solve the problem of having to sell all of our products online. So I had to get a new, very deep dive into online advertising that I didn't learn a lot about before. And then while I was kind of networking and looked around online, I realized that a lot of people have no idea how to sell their products online. And they know that, I built this store and no one is buying it. What should I do, kind of thing. So that's where the idea came that I would start supporting others in their e-commerce businesses. And in the future, I would very much like to include, branding, as in terms of the things that I can support clients with, or friends with, as I prefer to call them. So so it kind of is a whole circle, and it all makes sense because branding and design, and especially with website user experience, it's very similar to architecture, where user experience is very much the focus if you're a good architect. So yeah, this is the story.
Wow,
a bit long, but yeah.
From Now, what would you say when it comes to online marketing? What makes a successful e-store, and where do online businesses go really wrong when it comes to selling their product online?
Well, I could go for the cliche and say that you have to sell something that people need, but that's not really the thing. That the problem rather is that it's not that easy to be found online, and you have to get in front of people on whatever channel works for your business. And I think one of the issues is that a lot of business owners, they just don't want to spend on ads. That's one problem, that they they feel like that's expensive and it might not work. And if we are talking about products, for example, if you have or any business where you have a physical location, you accept that you need to pay rent, and it's high, and that's fine. But when you're an online store with low costs, somehow people don't feel like paying for ads, which is one of the issues, because you're competing with a lot of other businesses. So I think one thing is the approach. A lot of business owners are trying to do it the cheap way. They don't want to pay for a good designer for their website, don't want to spend on marketing. And then the other problem is that a lot of times, and that is because of lack of knowledge, a lot of businesses spend on the wrong thing, and then they see no return, and that's how you can lose a lot of money, and you kind of cannot fix that. So
can you tell one example where they invest in something that is really not the right thing to do at that point?
So for example, if we talk about online advertising, for example, you can spend on the wrong influencer. So for example, with with an influencer, for example, is the same with a printed magazine. It's very important that you're only advertising on a platform or with someone who shares your audience. So it's very easy to feel like, oh my God, they want to promote my product or my business, and then you're really touched by it and you feel like that's amazing. But the problem is that it might not land. And the other thing that is very easy to waste money on is marketing agencies who don't understand what they are doing, or SEOs who are not doing anything, unfortunately. And I experienced all of these, by the way. So I know very well how easy it is to waste a lot of money on these kind of decisions.
Wow.
Or like in our case, for example, spending a lot of money on a trade show when COVID cancels everything. But that's another thing. Hopefully that won't come back again.
Nightmare. Now, you just brought up SEO, so let's talk SEO then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you see the role of SEO in e-commerce?
Well, in general, in online marketing, it's the number one thing. And the reason why I say that is that SEO is not just the technical parts of it. And especially if we're talking about Google, and let's talk about Google because they're covering most of the searches online. Google does appreciate if you provide a good experience, if your website loads quickly, if people find what they are looking for. Like, I think this is one of the most important things to understand about search engine optimization, is that Google really wants to focus on their own customer, who is the person who's searching. And they want the searcher to have the best experience, which means that they find what they were looking for quickly. So for example, if like you can rank really well, you can have an ad and you can be on the top of the search. But if Google sees that they click on your website and then they leave and they bounce right away because they didn't find what they wanted, that doesn't happen. Google knows that. Google also can see ratings on other websites about your business. So there are a lot of elements to it that has to do with like kind of PR as well, but especially user experience. And I think the problem is that a lot of business owners think that SEO is this technical thing that we can focus on when we will make enough money to pay someone to do it. And I also understand that because I know a lot of SEOs are doing a horrible job, unfortunately. So like SEOs have a really bad reputation. I also consider myself an SEO. And I know that it's very, very easy when someone is offering you a service and you have no idea what they talk about. It's very easy to say, yeah, you know better, you're the expert, I would just give you the money. And then you kind of don't have any way to check if they've done the right thing or not. And I think that's a very big problem.
Is your message then that we all should know at least the basic principles of SEO, so that whatever we create on our website, whatever content we are actually publishing, at least we understand the basics? Yes,
and also if it comes to outsourcing SEO, I think you should always think about it. Like, only work with SEOs who can actually explain to you what they're doing. Like, if someone says that this is too complicated, I don't want to get into it, that's a red flag. Or if they promise you that in 2 weeks you will be on the first page of a search term, that's a red flag. That's crazy. SEO is a long-term strategy. That's very important to understand, that it's not like if you post an ad that's live in a couple of minutes. But with SEO, it takes a longer time. So I think a very good example to explain that is the average search result on Google, like the average articles on an average search, are approximately 2 years old. So it does take time to get to the right place, because Google also has to collect the information about how good your content is, how how people find it, whether it's useful, whether they still go back and search for something else because they haven't found what they were looking for. So there are a lot of elements to it. And actually, for this reason, it's very important to revisit your content quite often, because Google is crawling your site regularly. And each time you add a bit more detail, you update it a little, you work a bit on your links or whatever that is, Google sees that. Like also with our website, the most popular blog post that I wrote about the history of the tea bag, that was like, I wrote that in 2017, and it's on the first page in the UK, and we get visitors for it every day from all over the world, especially from the UK and the US. So it's worth adding more content, adding more detail, and then of course optimizing all the time. Always be optimizing. That's important.
I talked about SEO in the first season of this podcast. I think maybe episode number 8 and 9. I think I dedicated two episodes to it because I wanted to bust this myth that it's something overly techy and overly complicated. I think the basic principles are not overly techy. It's all about the user experience, as you say.
Well, there are technical elements to it, but that's another level. And that's where, for example, if you're not a product-based business, it's very easy, and you should appreciate that, because if you have an e-commerce store, you're very likely using a platform that is pre-built, and quite a few of them would have a lot of settings that you cannot change that are not actually helping with search engine optimization. So when you build your own website for your service-based business, that's great because you can set everything as you would love to do it. So yeah.
Okay. Any kind of free SEO tools that you could recommend us perhaps to use or consider using that would make our life a little bit easier?
Yeah. So one thing that I would say that everybody should avoid using, let's start with that, is Google Trends.
Oh.
So
okay.
Google Trends is helpful to understand what people are searching for or what topics are popular, but it's not actually helping with finding the words, the keywords. So that's very important to use Google Trends if you want to, but that is only kind of a guideline or just giving you a direction, but it's not helpful with the words. I love the tool called Keywords Everywhere. You can share a link. That's actually a Chrome extension. So there is a free version, but even the paid one is not that expensive. And the cool thing about it is that whatever you're searching for, whatever you're browsing in, or looking at on YouTube, you will always get a little window that tells you that in this topic, these are the searches that are currently trending. So that's very helpful for sure. I would say that's the starting point. Keywords everywhere.
Right. So you are just mentioning keywords, and let's talk about those keywords. So just to give a bit of context to this, in case listeners didn't listen to this episode 8 and 9 of season 1, right, where I talk about the basics of SEO, and I feel that we are getting now into the nitty-gritty of it. Just a bit of context in terms of language professions and what can be imagined SEO to be used for. So we are talking about our websites, we are talking about those pages, and we are talking about the blogs. So the blog posts that we are regularly publishing in order to have more exposure to the world, to Google, where people are actually actively looking for us and for the kind of service that we provide. And once we are using the kind of keywords that our audience is actually looking for, then we have a good chance to be found. But I always feel that there is this dilemma that there are the words that our customers are using when they are searching for our services, right? So I'm a German and Hungarian language teacher, so chances are that someone would look for a German teacher online, right? Yeah. Now, I've got a preconception in terms of what people could be searching for if they want to find me. However, I find it very often that the way I talk about my business and what I do is actually not the same language as what our customer would actually articulate and what they would want to look for. So what's your advice on using the right keywords and finding the kind of words that our customers are using?
Yeah, so actually there is another tool that can be very useful. It's actually a website called answerthepublic.com. And before anyone searches for any words in there, just saying that you can only make 3 searches for free per day. So take care of the searches that you make. But the cool thing about that tool is that you can put in any topic or a couple of keywords, and you can set the country where you want to see the search results, and it will list an entire, and of course it's the most helpful in English speaking countries, because that's where these platforms are collecting the words most successfully. But you will get the context of the searches. So for example, you can put in language teacher, and then you will get all the searches in the whole sentence as it was put into the search. Like, what are the other words that searchers are adding while they're looking for results. So and that is actually called social listening, and I think that's the important thing that we need to focus on, that we really have to be able to use the words that the person who is searching is using. So maybe they would be in a normal conversation using again a different, they would describe things differently, but then it's very simplified when people are searching online, and you really do have to use those words, and it can make a huge difference, because and it's the same if we would talk about Google Ads or just search results. The more the words match, the higher you can rank, and your ads can have a better ranking as well. And you can only do that by finding out what people are saying and what they're looking for. And I think that even though there are all these tools, still one of the best ways to do social listening is actually talking to people. So I think, especially with a service-based business, it's very, very helpful if you have a Facebook group or a Facebook presence in groups where your clients are hanging out, because they usually describe their problems or what they're looking for in Facebook posts. And then you can use that exact wording for your website. And actually, going back to the topic of blogs, I would recommend that everybody thinks about their blog not as a channel where we're sharing our ideas and like experiences from like work and all that, but we should really think about the blog as a channel where the search engine can find our website. Like, that's the only goal of your blog, essentially. So this is why it's important to look at results in Answer the Public or talking to people on Facebook, because then you can find out like what is the context in which people are looking for certain services, and then you know what to write a blog post about. And that should be your only goal. Like, if you, and it's not even, I think it's a myth that you have to post regularly. Actually, just make sure that you post a good quality content. Like, if you cannot write a good blog post twice a month, you can do it every 2 months. But if it's good quality, then it will work. But it will only work for you, and it will only be the right way of spending your time if people find it. So only think about being found and nothing else.
And the reason why I really love this principle or this idea is that it comes actually from a place of empathy. So we want to understand our audience. We want to understand their dilemmas, their questions when it comes to, as it relates to our services. And what we do is, instead of writing about us, we are having the spotlight on them. And that's the right thing to do. And this is what you describe as social listening. So listening to the audience and see what sort of words they are using. It's not about tricking the algorithm to be found, but it's actually showing empathy that we really understand you and we get you.
Yeah, that's why I love that sentence. No one cares as much about you as you do. So if you talk about yourself on your website, people will just leave. Because especially with a service-based business, you really want to share content and stories that are actually your clients. I mean, it's not that their stories, but they can relate to these stories, and They want to find the answers for their questions. So they have to see how you can solve their problem, because you've probably been in a similar situation or you understand it really well. And that is, again, so like Google sees if if someone is searching for your business and then they find you and then they book an appointment, Google knows that it happened and registers it. So that is why it's important to really focus on providing what people are looking for, because that will, again, help with your ranking, which is great.
Perfect. Now, just coming back to this idea that you shared at the very beginning, and I thought it was genius, about paid advertising. You said something. Why it's actually really important to not be afraid of of spending money on paid ads, right? Because you brought up this comparison between renting a physical shop. Of course, we pay rent.
Yeah.
So why are we so afraid of paying for advertising? I think it's genius. I use paid advertising. I use Google Ads all the time. Whenever the number of my clients would drop below 10, then first I would email my prospects, so prospective clients who are on my mailing list. And then if there is no one who would be really open to start, whenever I've got the gap opening up, then I would just simply reactivate my Google ad and it would bring in the client, definitely. So I look at paid advertising as paying for postage, to get myself out there. And
it's a cost.
It's a cost, but it's a calculated
business
cost.
expense. Yeah.
Exactly. But then you have got this idea that I'm really curious about, that so spending on Google Ads can actually also help with our SEO ranking.
Well, not the actual spending itself.
Okay.
But so the thing is that on one hand, like, there are two things to this. So on one hand, paying attention to what search terms people use when they find and click on your ad, that can be very useful, because you will know exactly what words to put on your website. So that will improve your organic results for sure. Also, that can improve, obviously, your Google Ads. Like, the more the words match, the higher it's ranking again. But actually, there is this theory. They say that in this case, when it comes to Google SEO and Google Ads, 1 + 1 actually equals 3. So when your search engine optimization is good and your Google Ads are good quality, the two together actually bring in more visitors. And it's not, there is no scientific explanation, or no one actually knows why this is happening, but it is a fact. So if you're doing both, in a good way, it's very, very effective, and it's more effective than just using, one of them. It's like they make 3, like, instead of bringing in 1 visitor, they will bring in 3 visitors. And I understand that the reason why Google Ads, or like paid ads in general, can be a bit scary, because all of these platforms are kind of, different beasts that you have to tame somehow, and it's not that easy, which is why it's worth outsourcing these things every couple of times, and then learn it for yourself. Like, I think it's very important to be able to control what's happening, or at least understand what you need to check, so that you're not wasting your money. But also, I think, especially with service-based businesses, we just really have to calculate the cost of the ad into, the price that we are asking for. And then it's already a different way of looking at it. So there's a problem, because you could say, oh my God, I spend X amount of pounds and then no clients. But in the same time, look at all the data that you collected, look at all the searches where you showed up, look at what they were searching for when they actually clicked, or what did they do on your website. And you can use all that, and it can help, every aspect of your marketing, actually. So yeah, Google Ads is complicated. It's very easy to lose money with it, but in the same time, it can also be very targeted. And And the reason why it's always better than, or, no, it's not better, it's different from advertising on social media platforms, because on social media, that's it's a very different situation, because people were not actually searching, like they were not in the mindset of looking for your product or your business. But when someone was actually putting in, like German language coach, they are aware of, the support that they are looking for. So I do believe that it's very much worth focusing on it. It will not work from the beginning. Everybody will waste some money on Google Ads, especially in the first, 1-2 months. I don't think that it's possible to avoid it, because you just have to gather enough data to understand how to, start changing your settings. But they are immensely helpful. And as I said, like, which also for our business made a huge difference, the product-based business, is that once we changed our product descriptions according to the terms that people were searching for, our organic visitors just like went out the window. So it's always worth paying for Google Ads. And of course, when it's social media advertising, you will not get all this information because they were not searching. So I think that if anyone's thinking about paid ads, then it's worth learning Google Ads first and then doing anything else. But of course, like for every business, it's always different what channel works for you. But Google Ads is definitely something that will give you extra value besides the visitors.
I cannot agree more. And I feel that us language professionals, we tend to be more on the introvert side on many occasions. That's what I would say, myself included. And advertising ourselves on a platform where people are actively looking for the kind of service that we do, it just feels so much better than, advertising myself on Facebook, where people are just spending time, hanging out. It would require a completely different strategy to advertise my services, because people are not actively looking, right? Just like you say. So that's where I feel that, that's why I tend to like or prefer Google Ads, because it just feels right to show up for the people who are looking.
Yeah, and it's also very easy to exclude those who are looking for the wrong thing. Like, for example, if you know that you don't want to show up for, if someone is looking for, I don't know, German language teacher for, 2 months or something, you can exclude that. And that's the cool thing, that on Facebook, it's not, even though you can be very targeted on Facebook, you cannot go into such detail because they don't have the intent of finding your service, right? So, but yeah, it's always search intent. That's the most important thing.
Wow. Yeah, I love these different filters that you can actually set up. And my one of the filters that I swear by is, well, of course, so for me it's demographic, so it has to be a specific profession, because I work with finance professionals, finance executives. So there is this filter option inside Google Ads where you can set up that how much their household income actually is, and this way I will not feel bad when I explain this is my cheapest package, and it's £1,200, then I'm not going to get disappointed faces when they hear the numbers, because I know that these guys who are actually reaching out to me, they can afford me.
Yeah, that's very important, actually, even though in a lot of ways, and again, it depends on the industry for sure. But I do think that there are a lot of settings in terms of demographics that are not actually that important anymore, or that they don't help that much with your ads anymore as they probably used to, especially in printed advertising and such. But yeah, so like combining the demographics with interests is something that can make a huge difference. And also, I think even though I'm a big Google fan in this sense because Google works, but it is worth looking at other search engines as well. So for example, in our business, it was very interesting to find out that there is this search engine that is actually running on Bing, so on the Microsoft version of Google, and it's called Ecosia. And so if you search with Ecosia, they will plant a tree for you. And because all these people are very interested in eco-friendly stuff, we get a lot of visitors from Ecosia, you know. So of course, we want to have as many customers and clients as possible, but at the same time, it's very likely that you will find, you know, one channel where they are hanging out more than on others. Like the same way as you might want to, you know, find your clients with your Facebook group, and maybe they hate Facebook. And for this reason, what I found as a really, really good tool to figure out how to find people is actually asking those who are already your clients or who used to be. So even with our product business, you know, I would send out a survey like once a year to those who are the biggest fans and ask them, you know, certain things. And it was very surprising last year when I was asking them about their favorite Facebook groups, and all of them said that they hate Facebook and they're not on Facebook. They are only on Instagram. And that's again interesting, because if you want to advertise on Instagram, that's of course Facebook as well, but then you know that you should probably focus on Instagram only. So I think it's very useful to talk to your clients and ask them, because then you can kind of find these patterns of their interests, and then it's easier to advertise to them and to find them as well.
Fascinating. Listen, any mistakes that you would want to point out that we should avoid when it comes to marketing our businesses online?
Well, the big one that I mentioned already is paying the wrong people. That's one. Number two, not understanding marketing at all. Like, you have to spend time on educating yourself, period. Like, it doesn't work without understanding. And I think, I mean, of course, it's different with everyone, but what I see that a big issue is that people don't understand their numbers. And so they have no idea how much they can actually spend on marketing, and they overspend on marketing, and then they have zero profit from their business. And that's a huge issue. And it's ridiculous, because I see that even with with product-based businesses, where the product itself would be, like a low-ticket item. And then people think that the profit margin is their profit in their business, but it's not. So I think it would be very, very important to always think about, like, what is the actual amount per service or per quarter or per year that you can spend on your marketing, so that you're still profitable, and not go over that, because otherwise you're just like throwing out money through the window. But then the other thing that I would say that can be a mistake is when you have, for example, on Google Ads, you have an ad that's working really well, and instead of saying, okay, let's make this happen, then let's get more clients, people decide not to keep that on, just like yourself. And I think that is a problem. So I think that if your ads are working well, if your clients are coming, it's not the ad that you should stop, it's your price that you need to raise. Because if you're at the position that your service is so amazing that you need to stop ads a couple of times, then raise your prices.
Wow, powerful reminder. Thank you.
I'm not, and even though I kind of frame this as a mistake, but it's not like a mistake. I think it's a missed opportunity of making more money, because if you deliver, if your clients love you, if it's working, your clients have results, your ad is great, your ad brings in the clients, then why don't you just want to make more money? That's it.
Makes sense. Okay. Now, to round this up, what would you say is the most critical skill in online marketing that has made a difference in your business? T-shirt.
SEO.
Oh, wow. I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised.
No, but again, it's because of that empathy that you mentioned. So being able to use words that people are searching for so that they can find your website. And then again, paying attention that, for example, of course, it's different for a service-based business, but like on e-commerce stores, it's a general problem that their internal search engine, where you search for a product, is not working. So people come to your site and then they cannot find things. So this is something that actually kind of applies to every website. If you do have a search, and I think you should have a search so that people can find stuff, it should work. And the problem is that a lot of times they don't. Like the default search is usually not useful. And there are external, like apps and search engines that you can add to your website. You can, like, there are even free ones that you can use. So I think understanding how people can find your site, where they are, how they find your site, and then make sure that they enjoy using it, is these three, and these are all SEO related. So I would say, yeah, love the search, but in the same time, I don't like. Maybe we shouldn't call it search engine optimization. Maybe it should be like searcher, or like optimizing for the client. Maybe we should put it that way, and then it makes more sense and it doesn't sound so technical.
Good point.
But that's the point, so that it needs to serve the client, and that's SEO.
Love it. And finally, if you could give us language professionals just one piece of marketing advice, then what would it be? You've given us plenty already. Well, let's point out one more.
Okay, so specifically to language professionals. Wow, that's interesting, because I don't know enough about the industry. Let me think.
That's exactly why I'm asking you, because it's so nice to hear, the perspective of a complete outsider who is not from this industry specifically.
Yeah.
What they would say.
Okay, can I ask a question first before I answer your question? So, what is the pattern? Like, what do you see? How do people search for, like, the person who would need your service, for example, specifically? Do you find it that they are using the right words when they are searching, or not?
More often than not, I feel that their search terms are very general. So let's take me as an example now. So German and Hungarian languages, and I teach these languages. So usually what I find is that people are looking for, okay, let's just stick to German language teacher. Often they would search for German language teacher online.
Mm-hmm.
And things like, or German course. Now, this is where I feel that, so I would not consider what I'm doing is not a course, so I would not necessarily use the word course as I'm describing my what I do and my service. So this is one example where they are actually using the word course, and I would not consider what I offer to be a course. So that's
well, in that case, I think one thing could be very helpful, to write a very, very long blog post that includes every sort of service that is not you, and every sort of search term that is not applying to your service, but all the things that your potential client would probably use, or what they're using, and use all that information for organic search. I would say that, and then exclude all those words, of course, from your ads. But I would say that if this is a problem that people are not finding the best way of describing, then just make sure that you have the longest blog post on the internet that explains, like, for example, it could be a blog post about how to choose a German teacher online. And then you go through, in every paragraph, you describe, if you're this kind of person, you need this kind of teacher. If you're this kind of person and want that, then you need this course, etc., etc. So even if someone who is finding your blog or your website and they don't find themselves to be looking for your service, you can still create trust, and you can still position yourself as the expert, because you can be the person they can go to and ask you, what should I do now? And next time, if they are thinking of, or their friend is looking for someone who is similar to, and also, like, I think it's very important that probably the reason why they don't search with the right terms is that they are not aware of your service. So you really have to find a way that people who are searching for similar things can find you still, so they can become aware of the services that you provide. So yeah, just write an amazing long blog post that is very helpful for anyone who is looking to learn the language that you teach, or the thing that or like the service that you have. And then, especially because how much people love lists, like 5 steps to like do whatever. It could be 10 steps to decide what German language course you need online, or anything like that. And that can be super useful, not to mention that can be shared in other places on the internet, and that's something that you really want. So when I said like always write content in your blog that is useful for search, also think about it that you might be providing content that can be useful for someone else's website. And you can even reach out to platforms. For example, if you know that your clients are often reading, whatever online magazine, you can reach out to them and say, I can write an article to your readers that can help them, find the best, language, teaching service. And I can also, provide you with a network of people they can, refer to them. And then your blog post can show up there as well. So I would say if this is a struggle, then just make sure that all the wrong searches are useful for you as well. Because I don't think that there is anything in search that cannot be useful or that is not good information for a business in some way. So yeah, sorry, long answer again. Long answer,
but to the point, and it makes total sense. Thank you so much, Kriszti. This was it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, really, for all these valuable insights and the wisdom that you shared with our audience. We will make sure to include Kriszti's links in the podcast notes, and do check them out and follow her work and check out their store online. The teas are absolutely amazing. Now, I really hope that this conversation was useful and also applicable to your language business. Again, my name is Gabriella Ferenczi, and if you want to get more bite-sized, easy to digest episodes on practical modern online marketing, then make sure you follow this podcast and subscribe to the channel. And for more resources, maybe you want to also visit gabriellaferenzi.com/thrive online, which is where I share even more. And all these links will be available in the podcast notes. So thank you very much, Kriszti, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for the listeners for listening, and for those of you who are watching this on our YouTube channel, thank you very much for watching, and then we will see you next time. Take care and goodbye now.